Greetings, magical souls. I have a very special guest with me here today, and it's Erin Brown. And some of you, well, I think a lot of you may know her, but Erin really just keeps me grounded a lot of the time with her Schumann updates and all these things that she does, and has really pulled me through some difficult times. So I'm really so honored to have Erin here with me today because when I saw her last year, I had this idea of us doing this little video together, to talk about the energy body. And here she is with me. So, but before we get into that, I'd just like to say hi to Erin and let Erin sort of introduce herself. So, hey, Erin.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited at this opportunity. I love being able to reach more and more people. The more people who know, the more people who know.
Yeah.
Um, as far as me, so I have 25 years in the medical field. I was a nurse in ophthalmology for 25 years. I then got my master's in health education, excuse me, health education. And I was teaching at the university not far from me up until just a few weeks ago. My awakening was in 2020, like a lot of people, and it came as the result not of COVID, but as a result of me figuring out on my own that I had been misdiagnosed with a very serious illness and following the path of that because I had allowed myself to identify as the illness. When you take that away, you're left with nothing. And I kind of went through this very big awakening phase, which led me here. So I'm very excited. It's been a twisty road, but fun.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's so amazing because I think a lot of people in the past sort of 4 years, if I can put it, have had almost these awakenings and these epiphanies and that kind of thing. So I just I really I think the reason why I'm so fascinated with you is that I know that all of us, are on our own journey, but there's so many things. Like I caught you saying the one day, that you were in your big girl job, which is I think what you referred to it as,
Yeah.
and but then you were wanting to read cards and then the day that you resigned, that you told me, had your video on that you'd resigned, I had resigned. And then it was really weird because on the day that I saw you going, I'm at my big girl job, but I want to read cards, I was sitting in my sort of, I call it my 3D job. And I was sitting there going, "Oh, I don't know how much longer I can do this type thing." So, and then you resigned and I resigned kind of at the same time. And there's just, there's so much, I don't know, there's so much sort of going on that is similar between you and I that is quite fascinating. So yeah, and so for anyone that doesn't know, Erin is great. Every day she posts this little Schumann resonance update. And for those of you who don't know what the Schumann resonance is, it's almost like, I guess we're looking at the signature or the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And we're looking at kind of the energies that might be coming in or that she might be producing. And I think that we are quite connected to that because I almost feel like when there's light coming in, I don't know whether it's almost light coming in or whether humans are bringing that light in. So I think there's a definite connection between them, but it doesn't really matter. But the updates are awesome because sometimes they explain the loud ringing in the ears or the headaches or the fact that you're having a wobbly moment where you're in panic mode and you're starting to freak out about what's going on. So these updates are really great. And I don't know if you want to say anything about those, Erin, or why you started doing them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Schumann resonance is the measurement of the electromagnetic activity in the ionosphere of the Earth. This is between the surface of the Earth and the edge of the atmosphere. It sort of ping pongs around in there, energy does. The spikes are typically caused by electrical storms, CMEs from the sun, all kinds of stuff. And it bombards our planet with this electromagnetic radiation. We are all vibrational beings, right? This energy is vibrational in nature. Even when you look at the measurements, it's in frequency and amplitude, just like a vibration. So I started to notice about a year ago that there were days where I felt really terrible. And for some reason, I don't even remember how I found this graph, but somehow I found it. And I started to notice that on the days I felt a certain way, it would be reflected in the graph a certain way. And I started keeping track of it. And as I started to do that, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if this happens to anybody else. So I started making the videos, and the response was overwhelming. Thing to remember about the Schumann is I'm not debating at all where the energy is coming from. It's coming from the sun, it's coming from different electrical storms, which is all a source. It all comes from source. All of this comes from source. So my opinion, my perspective is not on the cause, but on the effect it has, the effect on us as energetic beings. Everything in us is energy, absolutely everything. It would stand to reason, it's logical that incoming energy affects energy, right? So that's kind of where this comes from. But the actual measurement is the electromagnetic energy in the ionosphere of the earth.
Yeah. And I mean, I would really like to think that with us being more awake to that energy, that in some way, shape, or form, we could actually help to bring those energies into the earth and
Yes.
ground them and help her
Yes.
with her ascension. So
Yes, it's my understanding that the more people who are awake, the more energy is offered. The more energy that is offered, the more people pull it down and ground it in, right? So when we say grounding, what that's doing is connecting you to the earth and opening your energetic circuit so it circulates between you and earth, and you're kind of sharing this energy. So as we, as like the little antenna humans on the surface of the planet, are receiving this energy, as we ground, we share it with Mother Gaia, and it in turn helps her as well. It's kind of one big circuit. We're all here to work together.
yeah, yeah. Wow, that's so awesome. So Erin, did have a question for you. And sometimes when you're showing the graph, there is the first graph, which is kind of the blue and the red and the sort of white and the green.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the other one that you go into behind where the little spikes, and you often say, when I went into meditation and asked about this, and then you managed to always give us some more information. So just for our listeners, what does that when you go into meditation look like?
Sure. So every morning when I get up, one of the first things I do is I check the graph and I check in with myself. How am I feeling as I'm waking up? Where am I feeling this in my body? Then I take all that information and I go into my meditative state. I have a little room where I meditate, and walking in there, I set the intention of receiving clarity about what I can share with others regarding this energy. What does it mean for other people as well as myself? So when I go into meditation, for me, I'm a very visual meditator. I get a lot of visions. So I will get images of, different things. I can't even remember today what it was, but I'll get different images of things. And that's what I'm telling you that I see. It's kind of showing me this is how it could potentially affect you. For example, if a lot of emotion is coming to the surface, my guides will tend to show it to me like little bubbles floating to the surface, like effervescent soda bubbles, kind of
Right.
floating to the surface. And that's an indication to me that a lot of emotion is being released. Or if I get a tingly feeling in my throat, it's kind of an indication to watch your spicy words today. You may be a little more reactive than usual. So it's all little signs from my guides that I've worked out over time that I'm kind of looking at when I go into meditation. Also, when I start my video, I open my channel. So I'm channeling while I'm doing this. So a lot of times I'll say stuff that I was not planning to say just because it comes out as I'm channeling. And often, as soon as I finish my video, I don't remember necessarily what I said. So I end up having to go back and watch my own videos over and over because I don't remember either. But that's kind of what it is. When I say I'm going into meditation, I'm intentionally setting a meditative space and asking a specific question. What can I share with others about this energy to help them find comfort or joy or whatever it is, direction in what they're doing. And then I take whatever I receive, write it down, and bring it with me out into the video.
Wow. And that's so awesome. And I think it's really important. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to, sort of create my channel in that. But it's about the fact that for the listeners out there is that Erin and I are kind of ordinary people, and I have the same thing with my videos where sometimes I go completely off the script, and when I go back I also don't remember saying those things. And I think it's really really important to just understand that we can all do this. Every single being on this planet has this connection and this ability to go and do this but we just need to be open to it, and it can start at any time, but we get in our own ways. And I think, Erin, you feel something similar.
Oh, absolutely. You know, people get caught up in the idea that you have to be special to have access to some of these abilities or gifts. These are not necessarily gifts or abilities. They're just senses. They're extra senses based on your spiritual world, right? All your physical senses are there, and you have five of those. And you have senses in your metaphysical world. Also, the universe is about balance, right? So, what you have in one, you must have in the other. So the fact, you know, in your physical life, these are given things. You feel them immediately. You don't have to get in your own way about it. In the physical world, it's about realizing that it's not about being special. It's just about recognizing that it's there. The fact that you even know that you have that connection is what makes you special. And I think if people can realize that, it will help them get out of their own way. You know, we walk around in this world full of billions of people, and most of them are asleep. So what you're looking for to make you feel special, you already have, because you're already awake. That's it. That's the only prerequisite for it. That and getting out of your way with your expectations and your judgments, right? We all kind of, you know, when we're first going through this, we have TV telling us what a psychic looks like, and we have friends that are experiencing this, and we're thinking to ourselves, what must be just like that, right? If it's not like that, then it's not real. And
Yeah.
that's so untrue. You know, everybody's so different. The way you're going to experience things is going to be completely unique to you, because you are completely unique. You know, so don't get caught up in, if it doesn't look or sound just like this, it's not really a meditation, or it's not really a vision. You know,
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
example I can give you is with clairaudience. You know, for years I allowed myself to believe that clairaudience meant you could hear an actual voice, right, speaking to you. That's what I thought it was. Like Ghost, you know, Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost. That's what I thought I was waiting for. So I was dismissing all this stuff that was happening as me making it up. I'm crazy. I don't know what that is, and pushing it away and pushing it away and pushing it away. And then one day I had one of my mentors, I was talking to him, and he just looked at me. He said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You hear all these tones and sounds? And I said, yeah. He goes, when you hear them. I said, when I'm meditating or when I'm doing energy work. And he goes, only when you're meditating or doing energy work? And I said, yeah. And he just stopped and he looked at me and he goes, do you not see what's happening? Your guides are trying desperately to communicate with you, but because you have an idea of what it's supposed to look like, you are ignoring everything that they're sending to you. And just having him rephrase it to me in that way was like, oh my gosh. Oh, you know, like a total realization. Oh, and once I realized it, holy cow, it really took off. It was like they were just waiting for me to recognize what they were saying. And then they started just sending stuff left and right. So a lot of times, the people who feel stuck, like I'm not communicating, it's you in your own way. And once you get out of the way, the floodgates open and stuff tends to just rush in.
Yeah, and I think because of all of us are unique, we really need to understand that our guides know the best way to communicate with us, and that is going to look different for every single soul on this planet. And I think just setting the intention to almost say, I'd like to communicate with my guides. I'd like you to come in or show me, or just show me what that might look like, feel like, sound like, be like, and just be open to that. But then you've also got to be very present, so that, because if you're distracted, of course, you're going to miss it as
Yes.
well.
Yes, absolutely. Being present is paramount. That's why meditation is so important. The purpose of meditation is to bring you present, right? We spend all of our time living in the future or the past, and rarely do we live in the present. That's mindfulness. And it's hard to stay there just because of the way our brains work. But when you are present is when you can notice the little things around you. You know, if you're so focused on 3 weeks from now, you're never going to notice the flowers that are growing on the road that you're walking on. You have to pull your focus back closer to you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that you've mentioned before, but maybe for the sake of my listeners, you talk about sometimes when you want to tap in, and what you'll do is you'll put your playlists on random, and then you'll listen to
Yes.
songs. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a million ways to communicate with your guides. I often tell people it's like two people who speak very different languages trying to learn a common language. It's like someone who speaks Russian and English trying to learn German. Like they're not the same. So, one thing I did for myself is I started creating a playlist of any song that evoked an emotional reaction in me, joy, sadness, whatever it was. If it was a big reaction, I put it on this playlist. And there's about 30 songs on there right now. I do go through from time to time and take one off that doesn't resonate anymore or add new ones. And if I'm looking for a specific message or a specific guidance from my guys and I'm just not feeling like I get it, I will open the playlist. I will hold in my intention, okay, tell me a story. Tell me a story about my day. Tell me a story about what to accept. And I hit shuffle on the playlist. And the first three songs that come up, I take those three songs, the feeling that it gives me, and it's not necessarily about the name of the song. It's about the feeling that it gives me, and I take that and then I let it lead me forward. Like the day that I left my big girl job for the last time, I got in my car and I was very weepy and sad. And I said, tell me a story. And I hit shuffle. And the first song that came up, I think it was called Burn the House Down by AJR. And it was all about finding out who you really are and listening to your inner self. The second song was called Take It All by Rule. And it was about a person coming into their power and really taking everything back. And the third song was a Bob Marley song, Three Little Birds, that everything's going to be okay. So for me, this was a very clear demonstration of we got you. You made the right choice. It's okay. We're going to move forward, And sometimes I do get songs that are like, this isn't a good idea. Maybe don't do that you're thinking about. The key is to actually listen to the guidance that you get instead of just pushing it aside because it doesn't fit what you want, right?
Yeah.
That's the key. Just because it doesn't reflect the answer you wanted doesn't mean it's the wrong answer.
Yeah, because we all have free will and the guidance can come in. We can still decide whether we want to take it or not. And sometimes, even if you don't take it, I feel sometimes there's a lesson in that in and of itself. But yes, if you're wanting the guidance, you have to be open to it, but then you can still decide.
Yes, absolutely. And the hardest thing for me to learn in this entire journey, I got to be honest with you, is the idea that the more you want something, the less likely it is it's going to happen. Right? Because speaking in the terms of law of attraction, this is the only way I could wrap my head around this. Speaking in terms of law of attraction, if you want something really bad, you want it because you don't have it. It's a form of lack, right? So you are sending out waves of lack while saying you want something. And all this does is split your energy in half and it's pulling in two different directions. You have to let go of wanting it, right?
Yeah.
And just be open to anything. I tell people all the time when they're trying to learn how to communicate with your guides, let go of the idea that you want to communicate with your guides. Just let go of it. Be open to the idea. I'm open for communication and leave it there. Just leave it there and let it come to you in so many different ways because I guarantee you have an expectation about what it's going to look or feel like that's snagging it somewhere. So if you let go of that and just be open to any form of communication, you will be surprised at what comes through. You might see license plates with your initials on them, one after the other, or you might see numbers, or you might see feathers or whatever it is. Be open to the idea that it can be literally anything. Your guides are not bound by physical constraints. So they're going to send you all kinds of stuff, not just physical signs, but visions, feelings, emotions. If you're standing in line at Walgreens and all of a sudden you get a big burp of emotion come up, that's a sign from your guide. Wait, what am I doing? What was I thinking about? What do I need to pay attention to? All that sort of stuff. It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. I guess it's the allowing. And because we've been so programmed to do and to go after and to study for this and then go for that career and do all these things, we're so busy doing. And I guess that's why I know my dragons sometimes refer to us as human doings rather than human beings. And it's trying to be in that state of beingness rather, and the allowing and also the trusting, because remember, we've also been in a world where we have not felt safe. So it's so hard to trust as well. I find that's one of my biggest things. I feel like I've got to make sure that I'm safe all the time and I don't have to do that. And that is such a big block for me. That cuts me off from so much stuff.
Yes. The spiritual journey is 100% a trust fall. It is 100% cross your arms, close your eyes, and just fall. And you got to trust. It's really, really hard because there's so much physical in our face, right? You have bills to pay, you have expectations that you have to meet, you have obligations that you carry around, all of these things. But through my own experience, I can tell you that when you do let yourself let go, you will be caught. Absolutely. It may look different than what you think it's going to look like, but it will catch you either way. And the thing for people to remember is just because it started one way doesn't mean it ends that way, right? Like if you get a calling to learn how to read cards, that doesn't mean you're going to be a card reader for the rest of your life. Maybe it's about learning to trust your intuition. And this is what the cards are doing for you. And as you get stronger and stronger in your intuition, you may not be called to use cards as much anymore. And maybe you just go into straight channeling. And as you get used to that, that leads you into something else. Everything is about following your greatest passion until it runs out. That's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess also not being the same with the career analogy I'm going to use is that I think people grow up and they think that's going to be their only career. And then they sort of sit at 50 or 60 and go, I'm too old to learn something new. And I think that's also part of this journey is that it's never a destination. We're never too old to learn something new or to take a new direction or to just continue with the journey that is this journey.
Right. Absolutely. There's never a bad time to start, and you're never going to have the right time. I'm going to tell you, it's like, you're never going to, I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this with my big girl job, right? I was putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, even though I could feel it. I could feel it becoming uncomfortable, and I was fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. And then something happened, and it was literally like my guides shaking me awake and saying, now, right now is the time. And that's when I made my choice and did what I needed to do. And it was the exact right timing. But it got to the point where I was ignoring the signs so much that they had to do something big. They had to do it. It's kind of like driving somewhere, right? If you miss your first turn, you can take the next turn and it's not so bad. But if you keep missing the turns, eventually you're going to get really far from your goal, and it's going to take something bigger to get you back there. Yeah. So don't be surprised if you're talking yourself out of following your intuition and something big happens to get your attention. That's kind of how it works sometimes. That's what people call the tower moment, right? Where something must fall in order for you to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And also a lot about releasing. So maybe this is a good thing to I guess to kind of go into our energy chat. But I feel it's so important. So the analogy that I like to use is that if you go and buy a new couch because your couch is old and falling apart, you can't put the new couch in the house until you've gotten rid of the old couch. And I think that people are so much hanging on to things and even their past and their memories and even their past hurts. And they don't understand also that in the same way of that tower moment, you've got to almost have that collapse and that removal of before you can allow the new in. And yes. The same goes for healing. You've almost got to let go of all the stuff that you're attached to allow the healing almost to occur or that new space to come in.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, so the way it was presented to me in meditation when I was asking about clarity for this at one time was a hot air balloon with sandbags. Okay. You're trying to reach something that's above you vibrationally. You're trying to raise your vibration. You cannot raise your vibration if you are holding on to what is lowering it to begin with. You have to cut the sandbags, right? This, where you want to be, is not going to lower its vibration to meet you. You must rise to the occasion. This is you saying, okay, so I had a crappy childhood. I understand that. It wasn't fun. I understand that too. But I also understand that it taught me that I can survive on my own. It taught me that I'm a good person. It taught me what I don't want to do as a parent. All these things. We all have the choice. You can make the choice. Did your life happen to you or did it happen for you? And when you decide that it happened for you, it gives you back the feeling of control over your life, instead of feeling like I'm helpless to all these things happening to me. You get back that feeling of I'm in control of where I'm going,
Yeah.
But it's very much about letting go of all of that. And we store that in our body. We store all those emotions in our body.
Yeah. I mean, we're not really, I mean, you and I understand that we're not taught what emotions actually even are or how to deal with them from little. So, I mean, the good ones, obviously, like joy and laughter and happiness and whatever, I think we all find quite easy to let flow through us. But even the difficult ones like anger and sadness and that should do the same thing. But because we
Yeah.
don't want to feel it, we almost become resistant to it. And then instead of it passing through us, it almost gets stored in the energy body. I mean, that's my understanding of it.
Yes. Yes. So here's something I'd love to talk to you if you're ready. I'd love to talk about
Yeah.
energy in the body because we're right there at this great point for it. So something to remember, okay, before we begin this discussion. The action of living your physical life is to experience. You feel things, you feel joy, you feel sadness, you feel good, you feel bad. Each of those feelings carries a vibration, right? As you're going along through your life, the intention is that the emotion comes into your body and ping pongs around for 90 seconds. This is a psychological fact. Emotions are only going to last 90 seconds in your body if there's nothing else in there to trigger it. So it ping pongs around and you let it out. You experience the joy and then it leaves and that's it. Or you experience the sadness and then it leaves and that's it. But for us as humans, we don't like the feeling of sadness. We don't like the feeling of anxiety. So what happens is we start to feel it bouncing around and we grab it and we constrict it and we push it down and compress it down into a tighter version of vibration. Of feeling is emotion. A denser feeling is an emotion. This emotion, this nugget of vibration, then gets stored in the atoms of the cells around your body, around your chakra related to it. So, for example, grief, right? Grief tends to get stored in the cells around the heart, right? And when you picture an atom, you want to picture an atom with a nucleus and all the electrons going around. That's not empty space, it holds energy.
Yeah.
So as you are saving this grief, it's being put into those electron shells of those atoms around your heart. The more it builds up, the denser it gets, the heavier it gets, the more it sinks, right? That's when it starts to manifest physically in your body. Heart palpitations, heartburn, GERD, stomach upset, all these things because you have so much density in that energy cell that it can't function properly. So when we're talking about releasing energy, what it is letting it out of that cell. But the only way to allow energy out of your body is to re-feel it because that's what it was meant for. So you have to let it out of the cell, re-feel the emotion, activating it back into its lighter form and then out of your body. But as long as it's dense and compressed, you can't do that. We catch it, we push it down, we don't want to feel it, but we're holding on to it, we're storing it. So now when you feel a new emotion that comes in and it starts to ping pong around, it hits all those trigger points that you have stored. And that's what makes it turn into a bigger thing instead of you letting it go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess that's where the saying comes from that I know most of us energy workers know, and that is you need to feel it to heal it. But that's what so
Yes.
many people are afraid of, because I find people come to me and they go, but I can't feel that. I can't feel that grief again. I was torn apart and I was devastated. And I often say to them, but you're here now because you are devastated. So how is this serving you?
Right.
It's this, almost this, well, I've got it packed down and I'm okay. But the whole reason they've come to me is because their life's falling apart or because they're so riddled with physical ailments, and it's all been caused by that. And you're going, we're again, it's the fear and we are so frightened of feeling that emotion again. And it's such a strange program that I feel we have running, because what is there to fear except fear itself, really? And it's just an emotion. You are not that emotion. You're not going to die when you feel that emotion again, but we almost treat it like that's really what's going to happen.
Yes, I think society has taught us all that because we're a workforce society, it's about produce, produce, produce. There's no time to feel sad. The healthiest thing you can do for yourself if you're having a bad day is to allow yourself to have the bad day instead of pushing it off till 3 months from now when it's 10 times worse. Have the bad day, hermit, cry, be mad, be whatever, but get it out of your system, because what you're doing is making room for new. The longer you hold on to it, the less room you have. You cannot welcome in joy when all you're holding on to is grief. There's no space for it. You have to let the grief out. And it's so hard because people don't want to feel it, but what they have to try to remember is what they're feeling is temporary. It's temporary. It's temporary. I do a lot of teaching tapping technique for my guests, for my clients, tapping technique can help distract you. It works with resonance in the body. It uses these different points on your body, not just to distract you, but to create resonance. You're echoing off your bones to try to push this up and out, you know. There are tools to help you, but you have to be willing to at least feel it. You can't get over grief without feeling the grief. You can't get over loss without feeling the loss. And the thing to remember too with grief and loss is it's not just that you're grieving the person you lost, you're grieving the expectation for the life you had, right?
Yes.
It's more than one layer when it comes with grief. It's not just about I'm sad they're gone, but it's about I'm sad that the life I pictured for myself is also gone.
Yes.
That's a whole nother layer that people tend to ignore. And that can bring grief back over and over to you. And people will say, I don't understand. I thought I was over it. But you're over part of it, but you haven't even acknowledged the other part of it. It's a full picture. You know, it's not just one thing or the other thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's so important. I mean, and you talk about the layers, and I think so much about the healing, you know, whether it's coming from physical or from just emotional stuff, is that often it is in layers. And I think that people need to understand that even if something comes back and you think, but I thought I was over that. Sometimes if you try to heal it all in one go, it would be so overwhelming, and the body knows exactly what you can deal with, and your soul knows what you can deal with. And it's important to understand that sometimes you need to heal in layers, and those things might feel that they're coming back, but it's just that it's now slightly deeper and slightly deeper and slightly deeper, and it is going to be gone one day, you know.
Yes, I think that's why a lot of childhood wounds don't come up until you've done a lot of other healing, because the childhood version of you, the reason the wound is still there is because you can't understand it. So in order to get to that understanding, you have to know where you are first. So I have found in structured shadow work, in my energy work with clients, my guides only start at the top. They start at the very top layers, and they start tenderly, you know, pulling stuff slowly away, because the deeper you get, the more it's become a comfort to you. Even if it's painful, it's the pain you know versus the pain you don't know. So people will fight to hold on to that because it's what they know. It's not until you can get them to actually release it that they can find that clarity sometimes, you know. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, and I mean, even for me, I mean, I know all this stuff, and even sometimes I will find myself starting to experience something where I go, I thought I was over this, and almost having this little war, and then I've got to almost stop and remind myself that I know that this is the process, and it is okay to break down at this point, you know. So I
Yes.
understand for people out there that may be completely new to them, that even for us it's hard.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I'd say it's maybe even harder because I can't be objective about myself. I'm very biased against myself. I can't read cards for myself because I get the cards and I go, well, maybe it means this, just because I'm trying to shape it to what I want it to be. You know, we get in our own way with our bias against ourselves. We're very biased against us, usually, not normally in our favor, but against us. You know, we believe that no pain, no gain, you have to break your neck to get anywhere, you know, all this stuff. So if it feels too easy, we'll sort of sabotage ourselves a little bit and say, oh, it can't be this easy, you know, that sort of
yeah.
feeling.
True. And I guess that also is why, you know, I've often been asked well, when people have come to me, they've gone, you're so lucky you can do this for yourself. And often I will go to another healer because of that very reason, because I almost need that different perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
need somebody to call me on my shit, you know?
Yeah, I need someone to call me out. Absolutely. And I can't even, so Heather, my business partner, Heather and I, we can't even do energy sessions on each other because we know each other so well. And we each get reactive when the other person says something. So it's getting outside of your personal circle, because, you know, if your sister tells you, hey, you're being a jerk, it's a different thing than if someone outside of you says, hey, you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, so it's always helpful for me to go to someone outside of myself. I mean, I have a couple different people I use, and I try to go as regularly as possible. Like doctors, healers are the worst patients sometimes because we get caught up in helping other people, you know. But it is about taking care of yourself, finding somewhere where you have that outlet that gives you the strength to get through what you're going through. It's like borrowing strength from somebody just for 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah, and just on that, I mean, you know, often I dislike the term healer, but I don't actually know what else to call myself. You know, I mean, I think if I called myself a space holder, nobody would know what the hell that meant. So, but I think it's important for people to realize that healers do not heal.
Right.
Everybody's own self is their healer, but a healer is somebody that you can go to that will hold that space that maybe you find unable to do for yourself, to allow your body to heal, and also who can maybe walk that little part of the journey with you, or start the healing journey with you. You know, it's the I always like to think that we're walking one another home, and to me the healing is part of that journey, and it's okay to rely on somebody else or to ask somebody else for help, because we're not alone and we don't have to do this alone. So going to a healer is not giving your power away. The power is with you. You've made the decision, I would like to move out of this state, or I would like to look at a different way of maybe working through these physical ailments and that. And I am now going to explore somebody else maybe showing me which path I can go down, because I don't know how to do this, but I know I want to. And that every person is empowered when they take that step. They have empowered themselves, and they have almost, I guess, stated to their body that they now are going to allow it to do what it's always been trying to do, but we've not allowed it to do it. If that makes any sense.
Yes, yes, it does. What I like to tell people is I will believe in you long enough for you to start believing in yourself. You know, it's the idea of you're walking on a dark road and you can't see where you're going. So I walk up beside you and I happen to have a flashlight, you know, and I hold this torch up for you so you can see where you're going. But eventually I'm going to hand the torch to you and you will keep going. You don't need me anymore. I'm a big believer in the more healers we have, the more healed we have. You know, I want more and more people to see this. We are very much just here to walk each other home. But I will hold space and I will hold belief in you until you're strong enough to believe in yourself. And then I'm going to give the reins to you and let you do it. It's very much about learning to get out of victim mentality and take responsibility for your own actions. People bristle and get very reactive when I say you're acting like a victim, because they don't like that. But we all do it. We all do it. You know, everybody likes to blame someone else because it's so much easier than looking within to see what in me is making me react this way. It's much easier to say, you made me feel this way, but that's just not true. No one can make you feel anything. You make the choice consciously every day to feel the way you do. The decision comes in, are you going to allow this person and their crunchy attitude to affect how you react, or are you going to keep your own peace and say, you know what, we'll talk later, kind of thing. You know, that's where mindful boundaries come in, and learning that it's, if this person walks into the space and you know, I have a 3-strike rule in my business. If you come to me with a problem and I offer you 3 different ways to get around that problem, and you argue in favor of your own limitations all 3 times, we are done talking about it. I will change the subject. We're moving on because you can't hear me, you know? And it happens a lot. People will come in and they'll say, I feel stuck in my job. I want to do something else and I just don't know how. So I'll say, okay, well, how about when you're laying in bed and instead of scrolling on Facebook, how about if you go to one of these employment websites like Glassdoor and just look at the jobs? Just look, just see. Oh, no, I don't have time. Okay, fine. So what if you just daydream about the job you would have if there were no restrictions? Just in the 5 minutes when you're waiting in line to pick up your prescription, just daydream about what you want to do. Oh, no, I don't have time. Okay. You know, like people will argue, in fact, in favor of their own limitations because they don't believe in their own power. So once you stop blaming others and take that power back, it becomes so much easier to direct your path. It gives you back your sense of control, gives you back that feeling of, I know where I'm going, instead of I'm just floating along, you know, sort of by happenstance. You know, it's learning to curate your reality rather than go along with it. You know, changing your reality to fit you instead of changing you to fit your reality.
100%. And I think it's also part of the programming, because in this life, I think we have felt powerless, and we think we've just got to go along with everything that is happening. And we realize that when we really do create our reality, and I think that became it was something that happened for me during, the lockdowns and that kind of thing, where you could almost see the people that were living in fear, and then my reality was completely different, where I was not living. I almost felt like I was living in another world. And I think that that period was so important for me, because until then I didn't understand this. Everybody was going on it, but you create your reality. And I kept thinking, but I'm in this world with everybody else, and we're all living the same thing. And that became a stark, almost divider of how I would go out in the world versus how they would go out in the world, and how we were seeing two completely different worlds. And we do
Yes.
create our reality.
Absolutely. We curate our reality. It's just like your algorithm, right? You curate your algorithm by what you pay attention to. You
Yeah.
curate your reality by what you put your focus on. If you watch a lot of murdery shows like Dateline, then you're going to have a lot of anxiety because you are getting reflections of all the reasons why you're not safe. Instead, if you choose to watch things that feed your soul, I mean, there's a million different things you can watch that make you laugh, and things about nature, things about animals, whatever it is. Just get away from the news, get away from all the doom and all this stuff. And it's not about burying your head in the sand and pretending it's not happening. It's about realizing there's no amount of focus that I can put on this that is going to improve the situation. There's nothing I can do, and so I'm going to back off from it. Ram Dass, I consider him to be one of my greatest teachers. And he once said something to the effect of, it will never be a generation who protests war who will end war. It will only be the generation who promotes peace that ends war. Because
Yes.
it's where you put your focus. If you are focused on the war, you are perpetuating that energy. You have to pull it off and focus on something that feels better. And just, it's not about pretending it's not there. It's just about, I can't do anything about it. I'm going to leave it where it is and build my reality around me.
Yeah.
And once you allow yourself to do that, it really changes a lot. It changes a lot.
Yeah, because energy flows where attention goes. And,
That's
as you
exactly.
say, it's not the bypassing, it's the awareness of, but not putting all your energy into it, not putting all, getting upset, getting emotional, all these things, because then we're almost just, providing more energy to the very thing that that we don't actually like.
Right. Esther Hicks says a lot, things like the war on drugs, the war on teenage pregnancy, the war on terrorism, all these things we declared war on, none of them got better. None of them. They all got worse. And that's because we were focusing our attention on them as if they were the big problem that they are. Things will continue to be a problem as long as you look at it like a problem. You have to start looking at it from a different perspective of how can I do it differently? What is the solution that I can find, rather than this is a problem to be solved?
Yeah.
Very much, very much.
Yeah, and for me that's a big one, those interesting perspectives. And I think for me that's really what meditation has allowed. And um I guess just empowering myself. It's been a little bit of a journey, but it is that you're now, instead of feeling like you're just one dimensional, and that, oh, but I always react that way, or I'm just highly volatile or whatever. Now, almost in those situations, I can stop, I can pause, I can look at things, and I could go, wow, but I'm actually now seeing it from this other person's point of view, and I can understand why they're behaving like they are. While
Yes.
everybody around me is going, but you're crazy, he was out of line. And I'm going, no, but you're not seeing it from his perspective. And I guess when you come into this sort of this, I want to call it this wholeness of yourself, I guess, where you almost are able to see 360, and almost feel what the other person might be going through, or see it from that perspective. Even that in and of itself is so healing, because you find that you're not reactive like you used to be.
Yes. Yes. One of my favorite sayings in the whole world came from a movie, and Channing Tatum said it in the movie, but he said, when you react to people, you become the villain in their story. When you respond to people, you stay the hero in your own story. You have the choice which role you're going to play. You pick, right?
Yeah.
I totally stole that from Channing Tatum, but it's such a great phrase. I'm like, I'm taking it. I'm taking it because it's true. It's so true. You know, something that I learned from my own psychologist was, she said, if you're struggling with your significant other or someone else in your life, set some rules when you're calm, right? Tell them, like, I have a rule with my husband specifically, not because we're having a rough time, but because we did a long time ago. where I said, if I tell you I need a timeout, what that means is I need a minute to think about what I'm going to say so I don't react to what you're saying. I need to process this. Everybody processes things differently. And it is our fear of not getting heard or not being heard in the moment that causes us a lot to jump into an argument. So do yourself the favor of saying, if I need a timeout, I need a timeout. It's not that I'm walking away from this conversation. I just need 5 minutes. And that's done wonders because it gives me the space to say, hold on a minute. Let me just back off from this, because in the heat of the moment, you can't feel it right. You can't see it right. So you got to back out of the space, give yourself a minute to say, okay, what is he really saying? And what do I really want to say? And then go back into it. And starting your phrases with things like I feel changes everything, because it takes away the accusation against the other person. Instead of saying, you make me late and that gives me anxiety and that's a problem, you can say, you know what? I feel a lot of anxiety when we are running late. Is there a way that we can work around that? Those are very different vibrations and they start very different conversations. So be mindful of the words you speak to others. They carry weight and they carry vibration, and you're sharing that with them. So be mindful of that, you know?
Yeah, and you can only really do that, I think, as we've spoken about, you can only do that when you almost take a moment, and it can even be just taking a breath or two. But we're so used to trying to, for me, it was always I needed to react to protect myself kind of thing. And I've
Yes.
realized that it was a program that was running. And I look back 10 years ago now and I don't even recognize myself. I mean, compared to the person that I was, and even 5 years ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say just 2 years ago, I would, 3 years. So I've had my wellness center for about 2.5 years. And before then, if you had told me that I was going to have a metaphysical wellness center on my own and be reading cards on TikTok for a living, I would have laughed in your face. I would have thought, there is no way. I worked really hard to get my office, to get my degrees and my credentials. I'm never letting go of this. I was so stuck in the mindset of achievement is what makes you important, right? Me having letters behind my name carried so much weight for me for so long that it was really hard to let go of. But it wasn't until I was sitting in my office one day and looking around and thinking to myself, I remember being a kid and thinking, if I can get an office with my name on the door, that means I made it. I'm there. I'm successful. And I was sitting in my office with my name on the door and thinking to myself, I don't feel that. I don't have that feeling. Why do I have everything I ever wanted, but I don't feel like I want to? And it was the sudden realization, I'm trying to be something I'm not. I'm trying to fit into a societal program rather than who I heard myself calling myself out to be. You know, there's so much freedom with allowing yourself to just be who you are. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, since I left big girl job, I've never felt more myself ever in my life. And it doesn't mean there aren't issues that come up. It doesn't mean there aren't things that need to be taken care of, but I so much more feel good than I feel bad that it's worth it. It's so worth it. And every little thing is working itself out, slowly, but it's working itself out.
Yeah, yes, because I feel that I can be now fully authentic. Before there were so many things in my 3D job where people would come to me and they'd talk to me about the fact that they've had this ailment and it's for years and they've got this diagnosis and they've just got to put up with it. And there would be things that I wanted to say to them and go, no, you can think about this differently. But the minute I started that conversation, it would be, okay, is this woman, who is
Right.
this person, what is she talking about? And often I couldn't, the words would be wanting to come out and I'd have to squash them down. And then I'd almost feel like I had robbed that person of an opportunity to maybe heal themselves. And that didn't sit well with me. So I was finding that I was having to sort of swallow my words more, but at some point I was unable to. They were almost just coming out, and I thought it's now time to go because
Yeah.
I can't be in the space anymore.
Yeah, I actually found myself having I don't want to call it an argument, let's just say a spirited discussion with a colleague of mine who was a PhD in neuroscience. Okay. And we were talking about energy work, and he kept insisting it's just the placebo effect. It's just the placebo effect. And what I kept saying to him was, even if it is the placebo effect, why does it matter? if they feel better, why does it matter? And he kept insisting, but it's just the placebo, but it doesn't matter. If you feel better, why does it matter? And he was so stuck in where he was and so unwilling to see my part. It's kind of like the light suddenly went off in me. And I thought, you know what? I can't do this. I can't work with people who are rigid in their thinking. I feel better when I can say I don't know everything. I'm willing to learn something new. That makes me feel good. When I say no, I know everything, that feels bad to me and I don't want to be around that.
Yes.
So that reflection of what I didn't want in my life, that contrast was super helpful to help me realize, okay, I'm in the wrong environment. Not only am I in the wrong job, but I'm in the whole wrong environment because I'm not around anybody who's willing to actually listen to what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah, no, no, definitely. So I'm fully with you there. I feel a sense of, it's almost like I feel, I mean, I think I mentioned it the other day, but I have a sense of being in my new business now. I've got a sense of that it's where I'm meant to be, and it's almost like I've come home. Like I've stopped trying to travel around the place looking for my little box to crawl into, that I've now must find my box, but it's not a box as in that is limiting, but it feels like home. It feels like my place.
Yes, yes. I someone asked me the other day what it felt like, and I said, they asked me if I felt like I'd found my path, and I said, it feels like I have put my foot on the right path.
Yeah.
Instead of going halfway down all these other paths and turning around, I feel like I finally found the one where I'm like, okay, this is the right path, and I'm starting out. I don't feel like I've nearly finished, but I do feel strongly that I'm on the path that's going to lead me where I need to be, and
Yeah.
I'm trusting that it's going to do that. I'm going to just let it go and see where it leads me. I'm open to, appearing on podcasts. I'm open to appearing on TV shows and doing all these things because I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I know it's leading me somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's the exciting part. It's letting go of the control of I have to understand every little bit of the outcome before I get there. And instead allowing for inspired action to guide me to go somewhere rather than trying to like plan everything down to the last minute.
Yeah, and that's so important. So for me, there's two things there. So I am a planner in my 3D job, and I've realized that planning for me is not where I am most effective. I'm most effective in the present moment, and I think we all are. But there's something that happens with me when I'm in the moment, and almost like the less I plan, the more organic it is, and the more profound it is.
Yeah.
So the letting go of the planning is 100%, because to me that's almost living slightly in the future. and
Yes.
and it's also it is the allowing. So you're going down the path, and you've got this idea, I guess, because I've got a dream. I mean, I'm realizing my dream being in this business, but it's also that I'm not certain that there's no end point where I can see what that's going to look like. It's also the allowing, and also the being comfortable with that it's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows, because I am also healing while I'm still going along this journey. And there are things I cannot grow if I am comfortable. So it's learning to be comfortable with the discomfort, because on the other side of that, you've grown a little bit more, and you've almost opened yourself up to more of the connection and the I guess to the information that's in the field that is all around
Yes.
you, because we don't know everything, we don't know what we don't know, and it's okay to not know.
Yes, absolutely. You can mindfully plan for something, right? Like I tell people, if you want to take a trip, buy your plane ticket, plan your trip out. Get your hotel and plan your trip, but don't plan that on Monday I'm going to the zoo, on Tuesday I'm going here, on Wednesday I'm going here. You leave no room for anything to change. And if any one thing goes wrong, it makes the whole thing feel like it's coming apart. So instead of doing that to yourself, which you are doing to yourself, say, okay, I bought my ticket, I got my hotel reservation, and I got my car. I got 5 days. I'm excited to see what comes up. And just let it go and don't try to micromanage it down to bits. The
Yeah.
more room you leave for inspiration, the more inspiration you will receive, but you have to leave room for it. It's very much about realizing that even contrast is important, because if you didn't know what you don't want, you would have no idea what you want.
Yeah.
You have to experience the contrast so you can sift and sort. I like this, I don't like this. I like this, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wow. So yeah, and I guess, I mean, we've gone on a bit, but not really touched on sort of the energy body, but I guess it's okay because I think in a nutshell we've almost covered, that I think you're of the same belief that I am, that the things that are in the energy body, and we've obviously just had this conversation about how we we create all of these things and we hold on to these things. But I think the one thing that I wanted to remind people of is that I feel that every single physical ailment starts in the energy body.
Yes.
I believe that it just manifests eventually when we've packed it down enough, or when we've almost allowed it to almost sit there for long enough so that it becomes physical, because that's really how everything is. I mean, everything is energy, and then it just gets, it becomes
Yes.
dense and then becomes physical. Even the table, the computers, everything is made of the same stuff. So for me, it's really important that people start understanding that they're not just a physical meat suit, and also that it's not the sort of meat suit that fails and breaks all the time like we've been led to believe. It is a self-healing, self-tuning instrument, but we have to give it the time, and it also has to be in an environment where it can heal itself. And that's why working with the energy body is so important. And even though it's unseen, it's how you're handling those emotions, how you're responding to things. Are you giving yourself the time out, maybe during meditation? It doesn't have to be lying down. It can be dancing, singing, walking in nature,
Yes.
if you can't lie down. But giving yourself that space and setting the intention that now I'm going to relax now, and I'm going to allow my body to maybe clear out what I can let go of. I think that's so important for people to start realizing that our energy body is this beautiful big part of us, and that we are these magical beings that can self-heal.
Yes. So something I have found to be very helpful when I tell people is energy, everything is energy. Energy slowed down becomes information. That's why when you go into meditation and you slow your thoughts, you receive information. Information slowed down becomes matter, okay? Becomes manifest. So all this energy that you're packing into your system, the emotions, the dense emotions, packing, they're slowing. That's when they start to manifest, because they've become dense in their form, right? So reactivating these emotions lifts them up in feeling so that you can let them out of your body. I do 100% agree with you that everything has an energetic basis to it. I believe that viruses and bacterias, they all have different vibrations. I have not been sick with a cold or the flu or COVID or anything in years. Years. Everybody around me
Neither.
will be sick. Everybody. As I say that, I have a dry throat and have to cough, but everybody around me will be sick, and I don't get sick. It's because I don't believe I get sick. I stopped believing that I was able to get sick, and I raised my vibration enough that viruses can't stay in my body, right? I do believe that medicine can be a wonderful tool if the symptoms of what you're experiencing are so intense that you cannot help yourself. You
Yeah.
take the medication as a tool to help you get through the symptoms, but where I believe especially American medicine messes up is they look at the medication as the end, right?
Yeah.
You take the medication, you feel better, okay, you're healed, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're just treating your symptoms. You have to dig down. And the perfect example of this is all this stuff going on with my big girl job. I was stressed out, and I was really trying to force myself to stay in this job. I literally got an ulcer. I burned a hole in my solar plexus by trying to be something I wasn't. That is a very literal manifestation of trying to be something you're not, is an ulcer. And I'm telling you, as soon as I quit my job, that ulcer was gone. I had never had another issue from it since then. So people will say, oh, it's just stress. Doesn't matter. I was so stressed out because I was trying to fit somewhere I didn't fit anymore. And it burned a hole in my solar plexus. Like, that's enough to tell me, okay, let's pay attention here. I had thyroid cancer. I grew up in a very abusive a very abusive household where I didn't feel like I could speak up, where I felt like I had to hold my voice back, and it gave me throat cancer. It gave me thyroid cancer. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, everything translates. Everything translates. But
Yeah.
once you know that, that is you saying, oh, let me have my power back, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of my body because I know what I need for me. You know, it's not about saying that physical medicine is bad. It's just incomplete. It's
Yes.
incomplete. It's about the full picture. It's not about just one or the other. You have to treat your entire energetic body as well as your physical body because it's all together. You know,
Yeah.
you're not just one or the other.
Exactly. And I almost am hoping to see an almost a marriage of the, the sort of mainstream medical and the energy work, because there's definitely a place like with trauma and, things like that. But as you say, I think that it can be, using the tablets and things can be really, really helpful. But it's important that once you're out of that, that you dig down, because I think the longer it stays there, the worse, the harder it is to actually, then you almost need the mainstream intervention of the operations and actually physically cutting stuff out, because it gets to the point where you cannot heal it
Yes.
vibrationally and energetically. But if you go down and do the work before it has sat there for too long, I believe that you can cure the darkest things. I mean, how is it that people have cured cancers and things like that, where they say there is no, because in the medical world there is no cure for cancer that we know of, but so many people seem to be able to cure it. And I believe that's done energetically, or because they are happy to work through their stuff. And even if it's dark and disturbing and it's really hard, the point is that you're working through it, you're understanding it, and you are transmuting it back into, as you say, that light energy, well, the energy that it came in as, that you somehow held on to, or you couldn't speak up, so you suppressed it, or however it happened to become trapped. You need to find a way to work it out before it really, really sets in, so that it needs to be physically cut out.
Yes, it's about getting out of victim mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about, instead of saying it's happening to me, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to my advantage? How can I grow from this experience? Instead of being so caught up in this is happening to me and I don't have control.
Yeah.
Focus on where you do have control. What is the lesson it's teaching you? Where can you learn from this? I agree with you all the way around. I think that more we can do as maintenance for ourselves, the more work you do with your energy, the more grounding, the more clean food you eat, the more water you drink. You have to think about everything carries vibration. So when you are putting that nasty fried food in your body, what vibration are you giving your body? It's not just about meditating. It's about the whole picture. You have to look at everything, And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with every once in a while having like a really greasy cheeseburger. Sure, do whatever you want to do, but don't live there. Don't make that your core vibration, because the more you feed yourself that stuff, the more it resonates in your body,
Yeah.
I'm not against meat eating or anything like that. I very naturally became a vegetarian as I started to work on myself, because I noticed very distinctly I felt different when I ate meat versus when I didn't. And not because I don't like the taste of it, man, I love a good juicy hamburger, but I did not feel good when I ate it. I started to feel tired and lethargic and just nasty. But when I eat vegetables or when I drink clean water, I feel energetic and like I'm ready to go, and I feel lighter and all this stuff. You have to listen to your body and
Yes.
not just go along with society's programming of you're supposed to eat meat. Well, who said? Nobody said.
No. And exactly this, in the same way, you don't have to listen to all the people who are saying only be plant-based. I believe everybody
Right.
is different.
Yes.
But it's about listening to the body and knowing thyself, and you can even, I believe you can even, I have done it before in meditation. I've gone in and I have asked my body. I have asked it if it needs something, and I will get, and even if it's not there and then, there'll be an ad that'll pop up, or I'll walk past somewhere and I'll see like, whatever it is, magnesium. And I think, hang on, okay, right. Okay,
Yeah.
magnesium.
Yes.
So it's that kind of thing. I believe you can ask your body. I believe your body's communicating with you all the time. But again, you've got to be present and you've got to be mindful, and just it really is the holistic approach, because I think about I believe that energy is the answer. And I always think about Nikola Tesla when he said, if you want to understand the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I go, how is it that so many people in our world have, kept themselves lean and trim, gone to the gym, didn't smoke, didn't drink, had these really, really good lives, but all of a sudden at the age of 35 have had a heart attack and I believe that the answer is the energy, because you have no idea what their childhood was like, what emotions they might have packed away. So outwardly, they looked like they were doing all the right things on a physical level, but what were they not paying attention to? And that is the energy body.
Yes,
I believe that is the
1000%.
missing key. That's the
Yes,
missing key.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. In the US, there's a little bit of a hint of some glimmer of hope. There's something called healing touch therapy that is accredited by the American Medical Association. It is typically only used in hospice at this point when someone's dying, but it's basically just Reiki. And
Wow.
they're recognizing it as a healing modality in these situations where the person's going to die anyway. But it's a start, right? It's a start of something. So I'm really excited about the hope that I have that, my goal with opening the wellness center was to have one foot in physical medicine and one foot in metaphysical medicine and pull those two together, because when they talk to each other, you can get so much more done. I could not tell you, my friend Dominic recently told my Heather and I that he went and had blood work done. He just turned 50. He wanted to do the whole checkup thing. He went and had his blood work done. And he said all of his blood work, all of it was perfect, when last year it was not. And all that changed was his interactions with Heather and I energetically, all the energy work that we're doing, all the conversations we're having, opening up his chakras, getting him to touch and getting him back in touch with his creative side. He's doing the work. Don't get me wrong, he's doing the work, but
Yes.
it's like we gave him permission to do it, and he started doing it. And now his blood work is right down the middle in everything he does. We had a client that came in who had nodules on her thyroid. She came in, and for 8 months, she came for therapy with us once a week. And at the end of 8 months, she went back and had those nodules measured. And the only difference in her treatment was the energy work, and they were smaller by a significant margin, enough that her doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, because it shrunk those nodules. It's a lot about believing that you are powerful enough to heal yourself. The medical establishment has done a very good job of making us think we're powerless when it comes to our bodies. Take this pill, it'll make you better, rather than look within and see where you need help to help yourself. We are not helpless. We are meant to heal ourselves. The earth offers every tool we need to heal ourselves. It's just we have been so lost in the medical establishment, especially the for-profit medical establishment. Remember that these people make money off of you buying medication. Remember that, So it's not like they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. So keep all that in mind as you're working forward. And it's not about dismissing your doctors or not listening to their advice, but incorporating what you need also. And as someone who used to educate new doctors, I told every student I had, I always said, I hope one day you are an expert in a disease. I hope you know everything about that disease, but I promise you, you will never be an expert in your patient. Your patient is the expert in your patient. And if you would just talk to them, they can give you so much information that will guide your treatment course and it'll make it easier. Instead of wasting money on 20 different tests that you don't really need, because I can tell you, as a migraine sufferer, I can tell you what triggers it, what makes it better, how long I've had them, the tests I've had, what those tests said, what works, what doesn't work. You don't have to repeat those tests. Just ask me. And then listen to what I say and make me part of my treatment. So if you have a doctor that is unwilling to listen to what you need, it's time to fire your doctor. They work for you. Don't forget that. Yeah. Find someone who will listen, because I have found the younger doctors, especially working in the medical school, the younger doctors coming up are much more open to holistic treatments.
Yes.
So, be open to the idea of finding a doctor just out of school. I know people find that and they think, oh, I don't want a doctor just out of school. But I'm telling you, that person has the best of the technology, the most up-to-date knowledge, the most advanced treatments. That's where you want to go. because
Yeah,
they just learned all this instead of someone who's stuck in their ways for the last 40 years, right? So be open
agree.
to the idea that if you have a doctor that's not listening to you, fire them, find a new doctor. And if
Yeah,
you have to
because
go through 10 doctors, do it until you find
exactly.
one.
Because that's the important thing, is that each one of us is unique and each one of our bodies is unique. And I did a video not so long ago, but why we all heal differently. That's what I called it. And I just said, this is why you'll have people saying to you, you must do this diet and it healed me of X, Y, and Z, and you do it and it doesn't. And then you'll have somebody else going, oh, well, I did this and I did that. And then you still find, because you are unique. So the diet might be it for someone, the energy healing might be it for somebody else, the tapping might be it for somebody else, whatever it is, but your body is unique and it knows how it heals. So just be in touch with it, be in connection with it, ask it what it needs. But it is so important to have doctors almost looking at the person as an individual, not what the book says or what the treatment is, or
Yes,
it's
you are
very
not your
unique.
disease. You
Yeah.
are
I mean,
not your disease.
no. And every one of my healing sessions is completely unique, because I never know what I'm going to be called to do, because each person's body is calling for something, So when people
Yeah.
say to me, what do I do? What does it look like? I can't tell them, because it's different every time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a difficult thing to explain when it's different every time. Yeah, absolutely. Be willing to listen to what your body says. Don't talk yourself out of it. Like, if you're listening to your body and it tells you you need a vacation in Aruba, okay, maybe you're influencing that a little bit. But you could say, maybe I need a break, right, from what I'm doing. Or maybe I'm carrying the weight of too much, your physical symptoms, shoulder pain, neck pain. I find a lot of that comes from trying to carry the weight of too many burdens, right? You're trying to accomplish too many things. You've put too many unrealistic expectations on yourself. A lot of heartburn, I find, comes from rejecting part of ourselves, right? The part of yourself that you love, the more you reject it, the more unease you get in your heart space. With the solar plexus, ulcers come up when you try to pretend you're someone you're not, or when you try to live a life that isn't resonant with you. All of this means something in your body. You just have to listen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So Erin, wow. I think that was such an interesting conversation. I thought it was going to be mostly about energy work, but I really like the fact that we've almost covered so much, like quite holistically as well, from the guides to the meditation to
Yeah.
the energy body. And yeah, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out today to come on and have this discussion with me, because I really feel it's powerful when you've got, as we we're talking about, that other perspective, because maybe the way you explain something, just, I've been trying to explain things, but maybe you explain it and somebody out there goes, oh, okay, I've got it now, because we just have a different way of articulating things.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The last thing I want to say is people get in their heads about meditation. They're very hard on themselves. I have to meditate. I have to meditate. I have to meditate. And then they think meditation is sitting alone in a dark room trying to convince your very busy mind to be quiet for 5 minutes. That is not going to work for almost anybody. Meditation is anything that gives you a sense of flow. And if you have a very active mind, an active meditation may be best for you. One of the best meditations I do is I put in my earbuds, but I don't turn them on, right? That muffles everything. And people will leave you alone because they think you're listening to something. And then I go for a walk and I really pay attention. I look at the grass, I look at the flowers, and I focus on the sound of my breathing. That's a very rhythmic thing that you can focus on, and it opens you up and you start getting little inspirations. Meditation is rarely about big, giant, holy cow ideas. It's about little tiny inspirations that lead you somewhere. So don't discount the fact that you think you're not meditating because you didn't have any giant revelations. Those little ideas are what's leading you somewhere. It's not about dropping you in the middle of a storm. It's about giving you breadcrumbs to get you out of the storm, right? So meditation can take 5 minutes, it can take an hour, but don't force it, and try not to look at it as a goal that must be attained. Look at it as an opportunity you want to give yourself. So when you get up in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth and you look in the mirror, just say to yourself, I'd really like the opportunity to meditate today. Just put it out there like that, instead of saying I have to meditate, because if you don't, you feel like you failed, and then that's a self-defeating process. But if you say, I feel like I'd love the opportunity to meditate today, not only are you building it up and leaving it there, if it doesn't happen, you're not so hard on yourself about not being able to do it. So before everybody gets in their head about I can't meditate and I don't know how, maybe the way you're looking at it is the problem. So back off from that just a little bit.
I love that. I love that. And I always say to people, if you, I mean, I find I have some of my best meditations when I'm ironing, because it is that,
Mhm.
it's that monotonous, where the brain's doing one thing and the body's doing something else. I have so
Yes.
many epiphanies when I'm ironing, and I'm not even intending to meditate, but I think it's just because I'm now in the habit that my brain, sort of the brain automatically shuts off, and I think it becomes easier as you go. But
Hmm.
definitely even dancing and walking and baking or cooking, or find something that works for you, because I mean, I have days where I can't sit still. I can't, I'll try and go in, and all the monkey mind is just, and eventually it'll be, okay, now I need to go out and have a walk. So I
Right.
100% agree. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's
Yes.
different for everybody. And it can be different for you every day that you do it as well.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. It's
yeah,
anything that gives you that sense of flow. It's anything that you're doing that you look down and you go, oh my God, it's been an hour. That was a sense of flow. That's outside of time
yeah,
and space because you are in the present moment. That's why you feel that way. So that's where meditation lies.
yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erin. And the conversation was wonderful. And again, just thank you so much for your time. I know you're really busy, and yeah, I'm very much appreciated. So thank you.
It was an absolute joy. I really, really loved the conversation. I think it went exactly where it needed to go, probably.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
Great.
Goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody.